Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on Friday afternoon. I am so happy to be sitting here talking with Camilla Lackberg, all the way from Sweden. We have figured out that one of the wonderful things about the pandemic is that we get to do these Facebook Lives with people all over the world that we might not have been able to talk with. So looking at the positive side of things, we are joined here by Camilla. She is the prize-winning best-selling author of the Fjällbacka series, which has sold more than 23 million copies worldwide. Her books are sold in over 60 countries and have been translated into 43 languages. She lives in Stockholm, and today she is here to talk about her latest book, which is a standalone thriller, The Golden Cage. I am so happy to be chatting with you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to join. And I have to correct one thing.
Oh, no.
It's not a standalone. It's actually in Sweden, the second book about Faye was just published.
Oh,
so
okay.
There's so far two. We'll see if there will be more. I'm thinking about it.
So first in series.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The world is crazy right now. How are you?
I'm good. I've been in Sweden the whole time, and we've had a little bit more freedom than a lot of countries. And I think we've been doing okay so far. But of course, there's a lot of restrictions. But as an author, life doesn't change as much because I usually sit at home in my pajamas anyway. So it's a little bit of business like usual for me.
Fair enough. If you have any questions and you're watching us on Facebook, make sure to put them in the comments. Today's a little odd. Normally, John is in the background feeding questions to me in the chat, but he is in store. And so if it takes a few minutes to get to your questions, just be patient. We will get to them by the end. He's going to be texting them to me. So if I look down at my phone, I'm not being rude. I'm trying to see the questions from the comments. So The Golden Cage, tell me briefly about it.
It's a story that I was inspired by from reading Lives and Lusts of She-Devil over and over again ever since I was a teenager. I love it. I think it's a masterpiece. I will love it till the day I die. But every time I've read it for the last 10 years, I kind of thought that it's still set in a different kind of era and a different kind of society. So I started thinking, how would a modern she-devil do it? And that's how the idea for Faye came about. Also, it's this book, this series is also tribute to the kind of books that I loved when I was a teenager in the 80s. Books written by authors like Sidney Sheldon and Judith Krantz, Jackie Collins, books like Lace, Tracy's Revenge, Princess Daisy, Lucky, etc., etc. I could go on for ages because the genre has kind of disappeared. It was a genre filled with a world with luxury and power, and very often kick-ass, badass women who would take over empires, eat men for breakfast while wearing a fancy Chanel outfit. And I kind of miss those girls. So I had to make another one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great and indulgent. So I saw an interview with you at Entertainment Weekly where they asked you to write a movie poster tagline for the book. Your line was, "She had no more fucks to give. Revenge was hers. Faye was back." Can you talk about Faye specifically and what was your inspiration for writing a character like that? Well, you just covered the inspiration, but do you want to go into Faye a little bit more and what happens to her in this book?
Faye is the woman I sometimes would love to be, because I think that as women, we are often too forgiving, too loving, too supportive, and that gives us a disadvantage in life compared to men. It's also, of course, great qualities, but not always. We need to get angry quite a bit more, and that's what happens to Faye. She is loving, she is supportive, she sacrifices everything for her husband the way we often do. But when he doesn't return the favor, when he betrays her, she gets mad, she gets even, she gets revenge. So I just love the spark that she has, that she's not going to accept this.
Yeah, it's great. And you're right. We're so often amenable to whatever happens as opposed to
Turn the other cheek. Women are so good at turning the other cheek, and sometimes we really shouldn't.
Yeah, fair enough. So in writing, did Faye take you anywhere unexpected? Did you have any moments where she kind of took over against your planning?
I've actually borrowed a lot from my own life situations where I would have loved to be Faye, where maybe I wasn't always Faye, but I do often dig where I stand. So I've borrowed a lot from my own life. And I also love the fact that I have started thinking when I end up in a situation that doesn't really feel really good, I've started thinking, what would Faye do? And my friends have started doing that. My guy friends as well. I get calls sometimes from guy friends that says that, I did a Faye today. I walked into my boss's office and I told him, etc., etc. So doing a Faye has become quite a concept, and I love that. We need to do a Faye a little bit more.
That's amazing. I'm going to start saying that too. That's fantastic. What would Faye do?
What would Faye do? It's actually become quite a guideline in my life. What would Faye do?
Well, again, you're kind of answering my questions before I ask them, but what ways do you see yourself in Faye?
Well, I've created two heroines through the years. One is Erica Falk from the Fjällbacka series, and she's probably more like the woman I am, the everyday woman that I am. She's very much like me. And Faye is more the woman that I would like to be. So she's my dream woman. I've put everything that I would love to be into Faye. She's the kind of woman that could throw on her boyfriend's or one night stands white shirt and it looks like she could walk down the runway with it. I've tried that so many times and I just can't make it work. I just can't. And but I've always secretly admired those women, so I made Faye into one of them.
Yeah, but you're right.
Badass at the same time.
Yeah. We have a question from Anne in the comments, and I think you already have said this, but are there more Faye books planned?
Yes. The second Faye book just came out in April in Sweden and is now coming out in several other countries. But I intended this to be a 2-book series. That was my honest to God intention. But I have gotten so many requests and so much love for Faye. And I kind of end the second book with a cliffhanger without giving too much away. So everybody here in Sweden and the countries where it's now being published are like, when's the next book coming? When's the third book coming? So I'm probably going to have to write another one at least.
Is that what, are you working on another Faye book right now, or what are you working on currently?
Well, actually this fall, I'm going to start working on the next Fjällbacka novel. Okay. So there's more Fjällbacka books coming out as well. And then I have this huge secret project that I can't reveal yet, but you will become aware at some point, which it's a project that I'm totally in love with.
Good.
So, and I'm writing a new movie scripts. I just formed a production company called Bad Flamingo Productions in Sweden. So we're working a bit with TV and movies as well.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, the Fjällbacka series has always been a big favorite at Murder by the Book. So I'm sure people will be thrilled to hear that there are more of those. And if you haven't tried that series, the first one is Ice Princess, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
So we stole this question from the comments several author talks ago, and I love it. So I'll use it for you too. P.D. James once said there were only 4 motives for murder: love, lust, loathing, or lucre. Do you have a favorite motive for your books?
Well, I think my favorite motive is the one that I've used in The Golden Cage, that it's revenge. I love the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, almost biblical quality to revenge. Revenge is something that goes so deep into the human soul, and we've been taking revenge ever since the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
We want to get back. When someone wrongs you, we want to get back. I think that's so much more interesting than killing for money. For example, killing for love, I think, is pretty interesting too. I love the kind of motives when there's a manipulative woman, making a man do a murder. I just love those stories. And I'm watching at the moment Dirty John season 2, the Betty Broad story. Speaking of revenge, there you got a revenge story.
We love a woman scorned story for sure.
I mean, it's amazing. It is. Yeah. It's horrible, of course, the human, but as a motive, speaking about a motive, it's something so interesting to get into as a writer.
Well, and I think you're right. I think that in our normal lives, a lot of women let things slide. So there's something so delicious about living vicariously through this woman who is getting revenge. Yeah, for sure. I've actually
caused a few divorces. I've gotten some direct messages on Instagram where two women in Sweden have direct messaged me and said that, thank you. After reading these books about Faye, I've said bye-bye to my husband, and that felt so good.
Wow.
I'm not quite sure if it's a good thing or not, causing divorces, but I'm choosing to think that it's probably the best thing for them.
It sounds like maybe they just needed a little push over the edge to be empowered. It doesn't.
Faye push. They got the Faye push.
They did. They thought, what would Faye do?
Yes. Get divorced.
Get divorced. Be done with this. Okay, so your books are obviously suspenseful. Everyone keeps wanting to turn the pages and see what happens. Do you have a formula for trying to keep the suspense going, or do you plot it all in advance? Do you write?
Yeah, I don't plot anything in advance. I've got the main idea, and I've got pretty good idea of where I'm going to end up. But most of the story, I write chronologically, the way that you read the book, and most of the story unfolds for me as I'm writing it. And I love that way to create it. So I mean, sometimes I would love to be one of those writers that have a ton of post-it notes and the whole story laid out before they start writing, but I would never be able to do that.
Yeah. So you write in double timelines a lot. So you just write as the book would go, or do you write one timeline and then write the other timeline?
Well, the timelines I treat like separate stories. So I actually write them in a sequence, and the present in a sequence, and then I mix them appropriately. But I because for me, those are parallel stories.
Right. So I got not a question, but an interesting thing John just sent me from the comments. The Anne who asked a question actually narrated the English audiobook of Golden Cage and said that she hopes to do the next one. So that's kind of fun.
But that's so cool because there's so many people involved in making a book, and the people who create the audios, the people who translate, the people who publish, the people who the people who edit. There's so many people involved in creating a book. So it's it takes a village. It really takes a village to create a book. It's not only the author.
Yeah. Just a quick interjection here. If those of you watching missed the beginning of this, if you wait until the interview is over, the whole video will be on Facebook Live. Plus, this weekend, we'll get caught up and get all of this week's interviews uploaded to our YouTube channel. So you can see it on there as well. And I won't be able to help you with any more questions at that point, but you can tune in later to see anything you missed. A reminder, if you do have questions, just pop them in the comments. So
you can ask anything. I just want to put that out. You can ask anything. I'm very open, and I've got no filter, so you can just ask me anything. Go ahead.
Well, that cues up the next question. Let's talk about sex. There's quite a bit of it in the Golden Cage, more than in past books. Obviously, you've already said that you're inspired by some of the Jackie Collins over the top stuff. Yeah. But how did you find the writing process for all the sex scenes?
Oh, that was so scary. That is something that I've avoided for 15 years as a writer for many reasons. One is that I have the deepest respect for authors writing good sex scenes because it's so hard to write a good
Mhm.
sex scene. And if it's not good, it's horrible. I mean, we've all read those
Yeah.
like cringe moment. So I had really the deepest respect for it. And also, I've also always pictured my mother reading my books, my mother-in-law reading my books, and I've been quite embarrassed. So this was a big challenge for me, but I knew that these books would need to have that element. So I just had to, close my eyes and jump and do it.
Mhm.
And it got easier after practicing a while. It got easier, but it was hard at first, I have to admit. But that's also one reason why I did it, because I always want to challenge myself as a writer, because the moment that I stop challenging myself, that's a moment where I don't develop as a writer anymore. So for me, it's very important to be afraid still and get those butterflies in my stomach. And I was definitely afraid of doing this. But I have one big task. That's to make my mom stop calling these books the sex books. I'm like, could you please stop saying that? She loves them. She's read them. She loves them. And she wants to talk about them a lot. And she calls them the sex books. I'm like, la, 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 la. Stop it.
That's too funny. You should just have her say they're the What Would Faye Do books, not the sex books.
Exactly. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And she keeps saying that, well, I was young once too. And I'm like, la, 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 la. I'm not hearing this, not hearing this.
Exactly. Well, they've obviously been very well received, and I think you can say you did a good job with that. The sex scenes are also critical to her character because it's a way of empowerment. So it's not like you could write this character and leave that out.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's really, for me, I wanted to do something with a lot of girl power in it,
Mhm.
where you
Yeah.
could really read it and feel that I want to be like her. I want to do that. I want to set the boundaries. I want to have the power. So that was really important for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Susan asks, do you have a special ritual, like a special mug or something for writing?
No, but I have a special beverage, which is my key ingredient to being a writer, and that's coffee. I don't have a special cup, but I do fill all the cups in my house with coffee. I drink so much coffee. I probably have more coffee than blood in my veins at the moment. So that's my secret ingredient to being a writer.
Fair enough. It's just midday here, so I have my big coffee right here.
And I look like crap when I'm at home writing. That's also my secret key ingredient. I'm usually in my pajamas. I've got like yesterday's bit of makeup still under here. I've got my hair up in this at home bun. I don't know if you call them that, but
Yeah, yeah, we do.
I just look absolutely terrible. I have people, coming to the door and running away in fear when I open the door. Um, so I keep telling my children, I have 4 children, that the best job in the world is where you can work in your pajamas. I even got a flannel pajamas with kittens on it.
Oh
That's
my
how
gosh. Oh
that's
my
how.
gosh.
And I got one with dogs too, but I prefer cats. So
um, so you don't look like this gorgeous model on your book cover while you're
uh,
writing.
no, that takes a couple of hours. Lots of
Fair enough.
preparations.
I think for all of us, for sure. Um, so, do you mind talking about how much or little involvement you have with the translation of your books? I know a lot of our customers always want to know about how that process works.
I have absolutely no involvement whatsoever in the translations. Um, I, I mean, the English translation and maybe the Norwegian one and Danish ones are the only ones I can read, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I get everything from Japanese to Polish versions of my books, and they always send a copy of them to my house. Sometimes I'm a little bit worried because I could get the Polish version of the Golden Cage, and it's like this thick, and then I get the Finnish version, and it's like this thick. I'm like, what have they taken out? So, but I just have to, trust the process.
Yeah, it's I mean, I feel like that's kind of the answer all the time, but we still have customers who don't know how that works. They think maybe you're
They're probably
proofreading.
writers as well who really, the languages they know, they're probably writers that really try to read it and comment. And I'm not one of those. There are so many things that I want to control. I have to let some things go. So the translations, I'll let them go.
Yeah. And now I don't think they're available. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're available in the US. But you've also written a children's series and some cookbooks too,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's amazing. So what made you want to branch out? Is it that challenge again?
Yeah, and I'm always very passionate driven as a writer. I only do the things that I think is fun. I could never, as a writer, if someone approached me with a project and said that, oh my God, I'll give you $100 million if you write this kind of book or service, whatever, I would like, yeah, I would love to, but no, I can't. Thank you very much. So I'm very, very much passion driven, and I love food. I love cooking. So that's the reason I did the cookbooks. I've also always had a big dream to write children's books because I think that's the toughest audience you can reach out to. I mean, they're not forgiving. They are not forgiving.
And they're blunt.
The critics in the New York Times or LA Times or whatever, I mean, they're nothing compared to a 4-year-old. When I got the idea, when my son Charlie was born 11 years ago, for a superhero baby named Super Charlie, I just ran with it because it's fun.
Yeah. And obviously there's lots in that series now. So clearly the children liked them.
Yes, they like them. So
that's good. So I have a question. What does a normal writing day look like for you, either pre-pandemic or post-pandemic? Now in Sweden, the children are still going to school, right? So you're not like so many of these US authors who now have their children in their writing space. So are you still are you still able to write? And related to that, we have another question. Do you have a favorite place to write?
Well, I do write a lot at home, and my schedule is then I treat it like office hours. So when I've got the kids, away for school in the morning and prepared for school and they've left, then I take a huge cup of coffee and I sit down by my computer and I work for maybe 4 hours. And then if I've completed the amount of pages that I had put up as a goal, I treat myself of an hour in front of the TV during lunch with light entertainment. We're talking Dr. Phil or Real Housewives. I follow all of the Real Housewives. That's kind of how I reward myself. And then after that, I work for another 4 hours. But when the kids can't come home from school, then my working day is over.
Yeah.
And you're creative when someone says, mommy, 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 every 3rd second.
Yes. And for those of you watching, I've already asked, the dog next to her is not real.
No, it's a porcelain dog. I thought I'd have him join me. I kind of collect those. I love porcelain dogs. So this is the only kind of pet that I have the patience for.
Does it have a name?
No, but you can have your viewers come with suggestions if you can suggest a name, actually.
Well, he or she is beautiful.
Yeah, we can name it during this broadcast. No problem.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Okay, I had to carefully read this because I thought there was a typo, but there's not. Camilla says that she is a wheelchair user and always wanted to read about a killer in a wheelchair. What do you, Camilla, the author, think about that?
Ah, okay. I thought they talked about me.
Yeah, I know. I was confused too.
It's a very interesting idea. And I think I've had like every kind of killer under the sun. Someone being in a wheelchair doesn't make them less dangerous. Let's just say that.
There would be somewhere to hide a weapon.
Especially a woman in a wheelchair. Very dangerous. Watch out.
Especially if she's a woman scorned.
Exactly. The danger is up here, not in your legs.
Yeah. Susan asks, when did you start writing?
I've always wanted to become a writer. So ever since I was a small child, I had the dream of becoming a writer, and I would create stories from a very, very young age. When I was 4, I made my first book. That's, take pages of pages of loose papers, and you draw something on them because I couldn't write. And I folded them and I asked my father to write what I dictated to him.
Aw.
And my first book is 4 pages long. It's called Santa. On the first page, there's Santa and his wife. They're holding hands. The sun is shining. Everything is perfect. I mean, that should be a warning signal to you. And 4 pages later, things have gone, totally, awfully wrong. Santa's wife is lying on the ground, beaten to death, and blood is running from her Santa head. And I was 4. So I think I was destined to either become a crime writer or a serial killer.
Well, let's see how you went this way.
Life choices, yeah.
That is too funny. Clearly, you chose a path that suits you.
I've always loved it. I always loved the dark side.
So related to that, I have a 3-part reading question. Yeah. Who are some of your writing influences? Again, we've covered that a little. Who are some of your favorite authors, and what have you read and loved recently?
Influences. I would say my first influence was Agatha Christie. My father was an avid reader, and his bookshelf was filled with Agatha Christie books. And when I was 7, I read my first book by Christie. It was Death on the Nile. And after that, I just wanted to become a crime writer. Before that, I wanted to become a writer. But after reading that, I wanted to become a crime writer. And I do read 80% crime and 20% a mix of everything from Nobel Prize winners in literature to chick lit and everything in between. And I've always read a lot. Donna Tartt and Secret History especially has deeply influenced me. Gillian Flynn, I think, is absolutely brilliant. I'm so envious of her for writing Gone Girl. I think it's perfection. And it's Dennis Mina, the Scottish, Peter Robinson, English, Michael Connelly. I'm a huge fan of Michael Connelly. I've actually met him a couple of times. Last I met him in October in LA on the set of Bosch, because there's a Swedish, the director is Swedish. So, and a friend of mine, so invited me to the set, and I was lucky enough that Michael was there that day. So I'm a huge fan of really great storytellers. And the last book I finished was, I was a little bit late reading that. Everyone has already read it, I think. But Leila Slimani's Lullaby.
Mm-hmm. Which is I haven't read it, so you're not the last person, but I've heard wonderful things.
I love it. It was something new. It was something fresh, really dark, lots of psychology, just the way I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also that list of authors you named who are currently writing could not be made of better people. Michael Connelly, Gillian Flynn, Denise Mina, they're all.
Slaughter. I mean, let's not forget Karen Slaughter. I love Karen, both her and her books.
They're all delights for sure. They're great people, and we're all fans of them and their books at Murder by the Book also. Do you have any other hobbies?
I love to cook. That's one big thing. And I usually don't like to exercise. I don't like to sweat. But in 2012, I was in the Swedish version of Dancing with the Stars. And after that, I kept competing in Latin dance. I've done 2 Pro-Am competitions in the US, actually. I did one in New York in 2013, and then I did one in Boston in 2015. So I do love the occasional cha-cha.
That's amazing. I'm going to have to go on YouTube and see if I can see any videos of you on.
If you Google my name and Let's Dance, it's called in Swedish, or you can Google the Latin dances like cha-cha, samba, rumba. Yeah. You can see it. My clothes kept getting smaller every week.
That's terrific. That's fantastic. I think we have another question about to pop up, but I'm out of my questions, except that I always like to end my author interviews with some questions from the Proust Questionnaire, which, if you're not familiar with that as a viewer, Marcel Proust had this set of questions in the late 1800s that he would ask that kind of get to know a person better. So rather than knowing just about you and your books, this is kind of about you. I think we will have another couple questions from the comments because I can see that John's typing. So we'll get started on these.
Yeah.
What is your most prized possession? And I always say that it has to be inanimate, no children or pets.
Oh, I was not thinking about saying. Just kidding. I do love my iPhone because it's a tool for me to beat my husband mercilessly in word feud. So I do am a bit addicted to my iPhone, I have to admit, and I love beautiful shoes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I got a pair of Balenciaga Crocs that are my most prized possession. I chased them down for a year because they sold out in like 10 minutes, but I have a pair now.
Oh, lucky you. You know, iPhone's a great answer because I don't think about that. Normally people are like, I have a favorite necklace or but if I lost my iPhone, game over.
I'm lost. I mean, then you know, there's no more life after that.
Yeah, for sure. What is the trait you most admire in a person?
Loyalty.
Great
because
answer.
it's quite rare. I think the more you think about it and the older you get and the more friends you have and relationships you have in business and personal life and husbands. I'm on my third at the moment. I'm going to keep it that way though. He's a keeper. I think that loyalty is and kindness. No, I want to change my answer to kindness because it's a trait that we don't value very much in this society. But I think it's the most important trait. And I try to teach my children that always, always, always be kind.
Well, if you're motivated by kindness, you can hardly make a wrong answer, you know, or make a wrong decision.
Yeah. You will always, you will always have the right gut feeling.
Yeah, for sure. So this might be dance, but which talent would you most like to have?
I would love to be able to sing. I do love karaoke, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, after about a pitcher of wine, I think I sing fabulously. I think I'm Beyonce. Rest of the time, not so much. I really can't sing, but I love it, and it would be so fantastic to be able to sing. And I always attempt Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a big mistake, huge mistake. No one can do Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, it's a much harder song to karaoke than people think.
Yes, give me a pitcher of wine and I'm ready for it.
Okay, so here's the question from the comments. Do you have a 10-year plan, goals for how many or what kind of books you want to write? And will there be any more about Erica and Patrick?
Well, I've never been much for planning when it comes to creativity because I'm very selfish when it comes to my career as a writer. I only write the things that I feel like writing. The moment I start writing because of a contract, because of the readers expect something from me, that's the moment I'm not going to be a good writer anymore. So I usually only have a plan for like 2 years ahead. And that's the way I really enjoy it because that makes the future very open.
Well, and it also adds the option for, you know, planning 2 of these and then everyone loves Faye. And so you think, oh, well, I think I love Faye too. I want to write more about her. So, yeah.
Yes, I miss her. I really miss her. I thought I would be ready after 2 books. I really, really did. I thought 2 books, great. And then I'll write a fjällbacka and then I'll write some more fjällbacka and I'll maybe move on to, I thought I knew what the plan was, but that's something that I've learned through the years that you never know. So I think there might be a 3rd Faye book coming because I love her. I want to spend more time with her. I want Faye in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's great news for the readers who want that as well. So I think that that's all we have from the audience questions. Before my last question, I'd like to thank Abby and the people at Knopf for helping us get this set up, and especially to thank you for your time and energy today joining us. Tonight, of course, tonight we have John will be online with Helen Ellis and Nikki Dolson, and tomorrow John will be back with Beatrice Williams. A quick update on the store: we're still currently closed. However, we're doing mail orders and contactless curbside pickup, and we're happy to recommend books over the phone. Everything as normal. Tell you what we have in stock. You just can't come in quite yet to browse for everyone's safety. So to close, my final question is, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness is to not have to do anything. I mean, yeah, I would say that that's to just have a day without anything to do, and I can binge watch something on Netflix, because it's so rare for me to be able to do that. So that's happiness for me.
I completely agree.
Or a good risotto. A good risotto is always also happiness, I must say.
A day for me where I don't have my hamster wheel of a brain going.
Exactly. We can just turn it off.
It's great. That is wonderful. With my dog on my lap, not a porcelain one, but I'm still loving that Dalmatian.
What's wrong with my dog?
No, I love it.
He's been very nice.
It's been way more quiet than mine would ever be.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and best wishes. I really appreciate you joining us, and love the new book, and can't wait for more.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.
It's time. Bye.